Du-Yun Kim stared at the email on his computer screen for the 5th time. The Tower of London wanted him and his team to investigate ghost sightings. Not just any ghost sightings. These were different. The tower's security systems kept failing, and strange cold spots appeared where they shouldn't be. "This has to be a joke," Hye-Yun said, looking over his shoulder. She adjusted her glasses and frowned at the screen. As the team's technology expert, she always looked for logical explanations first. "It's real," Du-Yun replied. "I called them twice to check." The curator herself signed the request. The next morning, their small team stood at the tower's entrance. The old stones looked dark against the gray London sky. Tae-won, their team's psychic, hadn't said a word since they arrived. He kept looking up at the White Tower with worried eyes. Jaya Choi, the curator, met them at the gate. She wore a neat blue suit and carried a thick folder of papers. "Thank you for coming so quickly," she said, leading them inside. "Things have gotten worse since I emailed you." "Worse how?" Du-Yun asked, taking out his notebook. "3 more cameras broke last night, and one of our guards quit." Jaya stopped walking and lowered her voice. "He said he saw a woman in a green dress walking through a wall. When he followed her, he found himself in a room that shouldn't exist. By the time other guards came, the room was gone." Hye-Yun took out her tablet. "Could be a problem with the building's electrical system causing hallucinations. Old wiring can." A loud crash cut her off. Everyone jumped. Down the hallway, a door had slammed shut on its own. No wind, no draft, just sudden movement. "That door has a hydraulic system," said a deep voice behind them. "It can't slam." They turned to see Sang-Min Kang, the head of security. He was tall and looked strong in his black uniform, but his face showed worry. "I've worked here for 12 years. Nothing like this has ever happened before." Du-Yun watched as Hye-Yun scanned the door with her equipment. "No electrical problems," she said. "No magnetic fields. Nothing." Tae-won finally spoke. "Something is changing in the tower," he said quietly. "The walls, they're getting thinner." "Thinner?" Jaya asked. "The walls between now and then. Between here and somewhere else." Tae-won touched the stones with his fingertips and pulled back quickly. "Someone made this happen. On purpose." Sang-Min crossed his arms. "Ghost stories are bad for business. We need this solved quickly and quietly." "We'll need access to all areas," Du-Yun said, "even the ones closed to the public. And we'll need to stay overnight." Jaya nodded and handed him the folder she carried. "These are the master keys and security codes. And this," she pulled out some old papers, "is a list of every death recorded in the tower's history." The papers felt heavy in Du-Yun's hands. Hundreds of years of history, tragedy, and possibly something more. Something that wanted to be found. "We'll start tonight," he said. "Hye-Yun, set up the cameras and sensors. Tae-won, I want you to walk every floor. Tell me what you feel. I'll go through these records." As they split up to begin work, none of them noticed the temperature dropping slowly around them, or the faint sound of footsteps following their movements, or the shadow that watched them from the corner, wearing a crown that hadn't been seen in centuries. The first night in the tower felt different. Hye-Yun's machines filled the stone room with soft beeping sounds. Outside, rain fell on the ancient walls. It was just past midnight. Temperature dropping again. Hye-Yun said, watching her screens. 3 degrees in 10 seconds. That's not natural. Du-Yun looked up from the old records. "Where?" "The bloody tower. Near where Tae-won is." She grabbed her radio. "Tae-won, are you okay?" Static answered. Then, cold. "It's so cold here." Tae-won's voice sounded strange. Someone is crying." Du-Yun and Hye-Yun ran to the bloody tower. They found Tae-won standing in the middle of a room, his eyes closed. Frost covered the walls around him. "She's here," Tae-won whispered. "She's afraid. They're taking her to die, But she's innocent. His hand shook. She keeps touching her neck. Heyun's equipment went crazy. All the screens showed impossible readings. Something is affecting the electromagnetic field. It's stronger than anything I've ever seen. Suddenly, Taiwan spoke in a woman's voice. I am innocent. My only crime was loving him too well. He turned to face a wall. Henry, my love, why have you forsaken me? Anne Boleyn, Du Yun said quietly. This is where they held her before. The lights flickered. A woman's sob echoed through the room. Heyun's tablets all turned off at once, then on again. They showed something new. Look at this, she said. The energy readings. They're making a pattern. She showed them her screen. Strange symbols appeared in the data. I've seen those before, said a voice from the door. They turned to see Jaya standing there, looking pale. Follow me. She led them to a wall in the lower level. There, carved into the stone, but hidden behind newer bricks, were the same symbols. We found these during repairs last month, Jaya explained. That's when everything started. Du Yun touched the symbols. These aren't decorative. They're some kind of formula or spell. Spell. Heyun sounded doubtful. That's not. A loud scream cut through the air. It came from above them. Then they heard running footsteps. Sang-min burst into the room. His face was white. You need to see this. Now. In the security room, he showed them the cameras. One screen showed the courtyard. In the grainy footage, a woman in Tudor dress walked across the grass. She turned to face the camera. Her neck. There was something wrong with her neck. That's impossible, Heyun whispered. Ghosts don't show up on digital cameras like this. They do now, Taiwan said. He hadn't taken his eyes off the screen. The walls are getting even thinner. Something is pulling them apart. The symbols, Du Yun said. They're not just marks. They're doing something to the tower itself. He turned to Jia. We need every book you have about the tower's history. Focus on the 1500s. Someone made those symbols for a reason. As they left to search the archives, the ghost of Anne Boleyn appeared on 3 more cameras. But this time, she wasn't alone. Other figures walked with her, all from different times in history, all with their own stories, all with their own sorrows. The Tower of London was waking up, and it had centuries of tales to tell. The tower's library was dark and dusty. Du Yun, Jia, and Heyun sat surrounded by old books and papers. They had been searching for hours. Found something, Jia said, carefully opening a leather book. A diary from 1452. It mentions a man named Masterly, an alchemist who lived in the tower. Du Yun moved closer. What does it say about him? He came from a distant land. The king let him work here because he promised to turn lead into gold. Jaya turned the yellow pages slowly, but that wasn't what he really studied. Heyun looked up from her tablet. The energy readings matched the pattern in his diary. She pointed to a drawing in the book. See, the same symbols we found on the wall. The radio crackled. Du Yun. It was To-Won's voice. Something's happening in the White Tower. They ran up the narrow stairs. Tai-Won stood in a corner, touching the stones. Sang-min was with him, looking worried. The walls are speaking, Tai-Won said. His eyes were closed. Masterly. He worked here. Not for gold. He wanted to speak with the dead. That's right, Du Yun said, showing him the diary. He was an alchemist, but he studied ghost magic, not gold magic. Sang-min pointed his flashlight at the wall. Look there. Behind an old tapestry, more symbols were carved into the stone. They matched the ones from the diary perfectly. He made a door, Tai-Won whispered. A door between life and death. But something went wrong. Heyun's machines started beeping faster. The energy is getting stronger. Whatever he did, it's still working. Jaya opened another book. Here, the last entry about Masterly. He disappeared one night. Guards said they heard screaming from his room, but when they broke down the door, he was gone. Not gone, Taiwan said. Trapped. Between here and there. Between now and then. He touched the wall again. He's still here, still trying to open the door wider. A cold wind blew through the room. The tapestry moved by itself. More symbols appeared on the walls, glowing faintly. This is what's causing it, Du Yun said. Master Li's experiment never ended. The door he made is getting bigger. He Yun checked her readings. The energy levels are higher than ever. If they keep growing, the door will open completely, Taiwan finished, and everything on the other side will come through. Sang Min's radio buzzed. Sir, multiple alarms going off. We're seeing things all over the tower. Through the windows, they could see lights moving in other parts of the tower. Shadows walked the walls. Voices echoed from empty rooms. We need to find Master Li's workshop, Du Yun said. The real one, not the one they knew about. Jia nodded. The tower has many secret rooms, places that aren't on any map. Then we search them all, Du Yun said, before his door opens completely. As they left to begin their search, none of them saw the figure watching from the shadows, a man in old-fashioned robes, holding a book covered in symbols. Master Li had waited centuries for someone to find his work. Now, he would make sure they used it correctly. The security room's screens flickered with strange images. Sangmin sat watching them, his hands tight on his chair. Ghosts walked through walls on every camera. Not just shadows now. Clear figures in clothes from every century of the tower's history. This is impossible, he said, as He Yun checked her equipment. I've worked here for years. Nothing like this has ever happened. Look at camera 12, He Yun pointed. Two small boys in rich clothes walked hand in hand through the stone room. They looked lost. The princes in the tower, Sangmin whispered. He stood up suddenly. I have to see for myself. Wait, He Yun called, but he was already running down the hall. In another part of the tower, Du Yun and Jia searched through old maps. These rooms don't match, Jia said. This map from 1450 shows a chamber that isn't on any other map. Taiwan burst into the room. Sangmin is in trouble. He's in the bloody tower. They ran to find him. The hallway was freezing cold. They found Sangmin standing still, staring at nothing. Tears ran down his face. I saw them, he said. The princes. They were right here. They asked me to help them find their way home. He turned to Du Yun. They were just children. He Yun's machines beeped wildly. The energy patterns are changing. They're making shapes, like they're trying to tell us something. Taiwan touched the wall. The ghosts are scared. Something is forcing them to appear. They don't want to be here. Suddenly, all the lights went out. In the dark, they heard footsteps. Many footsteps from every direction. When the emergency lights came on, they saw writing on the walls. Not the old symbols this time. New words in modern English. Find Guy Dior. It's Master Li, Du Yun said. He's using the ghost's energy to communicate. He Yun checked her readings. The energy is forming patterns. Look. She showed them her screen. The readings made a map. That's it, Jia said. It matches the missing chamber from the 1450 map. A child's laugh echoed through the halls, then a woman's scream. Then more voices, all mixing together. The door between worlds is breaking, Taiwan said. We're seeing more ghosts because they can't stay on their side anymore. Sangmin wiped his eyes. I'll help you, he said. Whatever you need. Those princes, all of them, they deserve peace. The map shows the chamber under the White Tower, Du Yun said. We need to find it tonight. As they gathered their equipment, the ghosts watched them. Hundreds of eyes from hundreds of years, all hoping these living people could fix what Master Li had broken so long ago. But in the shadows, Master Li himself smiled. Everything was going exactly as he had planned. Soon, his greatest work would be complete. The stairs down to the hidden chamber were narrow and steep. Du Yun led the way, holding an old torch they'd found. He Yun's machines beeped faster with each step down. "The energy is stronger here," she said. "Whatever's causing this, we're getting closer." Taiwan walked behind her, his hand touching the wall. Many spirits passed through here, but they didn't want to. Something pulled them. They reached a heavy wooden door. Strange marks covered it. The same symbols they'd seen before, but bigger and more complex. "Master Li's workshop," Du Yun said. "It has to be." Jaya examined the door. "These hinges, they're not rusted. Someone's been using this door." Sang Min tried the handle. It opened with a soft click. The room behind the door was large and round. Tables lined the walls, covered in old books and strange tools. Symbols were carved everywhere, on the walls, the floor, even the ceiling. "Look at this," He Yun said. Her machine screen showed waves of energy moving through the room like water. "The whole chamber is like a giant battery, storing ghost energy." Taiwan walked to the center of the room. "This is wrong," he said. "The tower isn't meant to trap spirits. It's meant to remember them." "He's right," Jaya said, looking through a book she'd found. "According to this, Master Li didn't just want to talk to ghosts. He wanted to control them, use their energy." Du Yun picked up another book. He thought if he collected enough spirit energy, he could live forever. That's why he built this place. The tower's history of death made it perfect for his work. Suddenly, all the candles in the room lit by themselves. A cold wind blew through the chamber. The symbols on the walls began to glow. "Something's happening," He Yun said, checking her readings. "The energy levels are going crazy." A figure appeared in the center of the room, a man in old robes, holding a book. Master Li. He looked solid, almost alive. "At last," he said, his voice echoing strangely. "After centuries, someone clever enough to finish my work." "We're not here to help you," Du Yun said. "We're here to stop this." Master Li smiled. "You can't stop it. The door is almost open. Soon, the barrier between life and death will break completely, and I will have power over both." The symbols glowed brighter. More ghosts appeared around them. Soldiers, queens, children, servants, all trapped by Master Li's magic. "We have to close the door," Taiwan said, "before it's too late." But Master Li raised his hands, and the ghost energy swirled around him like a storm. The team's real challenge was just beginning. Ghost energy filled the underground chamber like a storm. He Yun's machine sparked and died. The symbols on the walls glowed bright blue, pulsing like heartbeats. "The barrier is breaking," Taiwan shouted over the noise. "We can't let it collapse completely." Master Li stood in the center, his ghost form growing more solid with each pulse. "5 centuries I've waited," he said, gathering power, learning. "Now the worlds will merge, and death itself will bow to me." Du Yun grabbed He Yun's arm. "Can you modify your equipment? We need to measure the energy pattern." He Yun pulled parts from her broken machines. "I need time." "You don't have time," Master Li laughed. More ghosts appeared, kings, queens, guards, prisoners. Their energy flowed into him like streams into a river. Sang Min ran to the door, but it slammed shut. "We're trapped." Jaya opened the old book she'd found. "Look, the symbols are a circuit. They're channeling the ghost energy through specific paths." He Yun worked faster, connecting wires and screens. "If we can disrupt the flow." A ghost appeared next to her, a small boy in royal clothes, one of the princes. He pointed at her broken machines, then at the walls. "The children," Taiwan said suddenly. "They're trying to help." More ghosts gathered around He Yun. They touched her machines with their ghostly hands. The screens flickered to life, showing new patterns. "That's it," He Yun said. "The energy isn't just flowing. It's responding to emotions. The angry ghosts make it stronger, but the peaceful ones make it weaker, Du Yun finished. Master Li has been using their pain and fear, but there's more to the tower's history than that. Master Li's form flickered. No, you cannot stop this. But He Yun had finished her modifications. She pointed her rebuilt machine at the walls. The ghost princes touched it, and a soft blue light spread through the room. Other ghosts joined them, not with anger or fear, but with purpose. Anne Boleyn appeared, her head held high. Guards who had served faithfully, even prisoners who had found peace. The tower remembers everything, Taiwan said. Not just the darkness, the loyalty, the courage, the love. Master Li screamed as his power weakened. The storm of energy began to calm. But they all knew this was just the beginning. They had found a way to fight back, but could they close the door between worlds before it was too late? Outside the chamber, the Tower of London stood quiet under the night sky. Its stones held centuries of stories, waiting to be told the right way. He Yun's modified equipment hummed in the dark chamber. Ghost light filled the room with soft blue shadows. Du Yun held Master Li's journal, reading the symbols carefully. We need to reverse his ritual, he said. Close the door he opened. Master Li's ghost fought against the peaceful energy around him. Fools, you'll trap them here forever. No, Taiwan said quietly. We'll free them. All of them. He stood in the center of the room, where the symbol patterns met. The ghost princes stood with him, their small hands in his. He Yun connected her last wire. Ready. The peaceful energy should power the reversal. Start now, Jaya said, watching the walls shake. The tower can't take much more. Taiwan began to speak words from Master Li's book. The symbols on the walls changed color, from blue to gold. Anne Boleyn's ghost appeared near him, then others, each choosing to help close the door. Master Li screamed, No, my work. He threw dark energy at Taiwan. But Sang Min jumped in front, holding an ancient shield from the wall. The tower protects its own, Sang Min said. Du Yun joined Taiwan, reading the next part of the ritual. He Yun's machines pumped peaceful energy through the symbols. Jia traced new patterns on the walls with chalk, completing circles Master Li had left open. The ghost princes glowed brighter. Other child ghosts joined them, forming a circle of light. Their innocent energy powered the ritual more than any dark magic could. It's working, He Yun shouted. Her screen showed the door between worlds starting to close. Master Li grew desperate. He threw all his power at them. 5 centuries of work. You cannot end this. Your time is over, Du Yun said. Let them rest. The ritual reached its peak. Golden light filled every corner. The ghosts who helped them began to fade, not in fear, but in peace. The princes waved goodbye to Sang Min before disappearing. Master Li made one last try. He grabbed for Du Yun, his ghost hands reaching for the book. But Anne Boleyn and the tower's guards surrounded him. You used our pain, Anne's ghost said. Now feel it yourself. The golden light grew blinding. Master Li's scream echoed as the door between worlds finally began to close. The symbols on the walls slowly faded. But they all knew their work wasn't finished. The door was closing, but something still had to be done to keep it that way. The hardest part of their task was still to come. Morning light touched the tower's ancient walls. In the underground chamber, Du Yun and his team looked at their work. The symbols still glowed faintly, but they were different now. Peaceful, not threatening. The door is stable, He Yun said, checking her rebuilt equipment. Not completely closed, but safe. The energy flows both ways now, naturally. Taiwan touched the walls one last time. The spirits can choose now. Stay or go. No one controls them. Master Li's ghost was gone, his power broken. But his books remained, full of dangerous knowledge. What should we do with these? Jaya asked, holding the ancient texts. Keep them, Du Yun said, but protected. The tower's history shouldn't be hidden, just respected. Sang Min looked around the chamber. The princes came to say goodbye. They're at peace now. They climbed back to the main tower. The morning tourists were already arriving. None of them knew what had happened during the night. We need to document everything, Heyun said. My readings, the symbols, the ritual, but carefully. Jaya nodded. I'll create 2 records, one for the public, about studying the tower's structure, and one for the archives, with the full truth. The ghosts will still appear, Ta-Wan said, but not because they're trapped, because they choose to be remembered. As if to prove his words, they saw Anne Boleyn's ghost walking peacefully in her garden. She smiled at them before fading away. Heyun looked at her machines. The energy patterns are beautiful now, like music instead of noise. Science and spirit in harmony. The tower has always been special, Du Yun said. Now it's balanced. A bridge between past and present, not a prison for lost souls. Sang Min, once the biggest skeptic, stood at a window. I'll stay here, he said. Help guard both sides of the tower. The one tourists see, and the one we know exists. Jaya began organizing their notes. Every historic place has its secrets. The tower's secrets just needed to be understood, not feared. That evening, they watched the sun set behind the tower's walls. The stones still held centuries of history, but now the weight was lighter. The ghosts would stay, telling their stories in their own way, in their own time. Du Yun looked at his team. The scientist who learned to believe, the medium who helped spirits find peace, the curator who protected history's truth, and the guard who found courage in facing the unknown. Together, they had turned the tower's haunted history from a curse into a gift. The Tower of London stood proud against the darkening sky, its ghosts now guardians of memory rather than prisoners of the past.